You've arrived at Cozy Side Audio, where dreams begin with a story. Whether you're studying, journaling, or just chilling, this one's for you. If you vibe with this kind of content, go ahead and like, share, and subscribe for more. Cozy Side Audio presents 16 Bars and a Dream. Chapter 1, White Noise and Hand-Me-Down Dreams. The house was loud in the quietest way. The old fridge moaned like it had arthritis, pipes hissed, and the neighbor's bass thudded through the drywall in slow motion. Jalen sat on the edge of his twin bed, laptop balanced on a plastic crate that doubled as a desk. The cracked screen glowed against peeling posters. Kendrick's Good Kid, MAAD City, J. Cole's 2014 Forest Hills Drive, and Tyler's Flower Boy, the trinity that made him believe words could turn into survival. The clock read 12:47 a.m. His mom was still at the hospital, pulling the back half of another double. He texted her a love you earlier, got the 3 dots for a second, then nothing. She'd fallen asleep in the break room again, probably with her phone in her lap. He slid the mic, one of those $50 USB joints, out of a shoebox. It smelled faintly like the factory glue of something not built to last. The pop filter was a wire hanger twisted into a halo with one leg of a pantyhose stretched over it. He grinned at the jankiness. Budget Booth Records, he whispered, the slogan of dreams that didn't have a label yet. He booted up Audacity. Nah. The program coughed alive with static. Inside his cheap Sony headphones, a beat looped, dusty snare taps, a muted kick like a heartbeat under a pillow, and a chopped soul sample. A woman humming one line. Keep holding on. Replaying every 4 bars. It sounded like the world outside was spinning on 33 revolutions per minute and he was the only one still. He leaned close to the mic. Testing, yo. The waveform danced. Okay, still alive. He opened his notebook. Wrinkled pages, pen ink bleeding like it had cried too. On the top line, 16 bars and a dream. Rough. He cleared his throat and started slow, reading from the page but letting it move like breath. Ceiling fan halo, I'm praying to spin out of phase. Mama 2 jobs deep, sleep talking through better days. Dreams in a lunchbox, reheated and microwaved. I'm just trying to write a future that the bills can't erase. The first take was shaky, like his tongue hadn't caught up with his heartbeat. He hit stop. Playback. The hiss of his cheap mic swallowed the beat, but under it, his voice had a kind of hunger he didn't recognize yet. Not confidence, something rawer, hungrier, almost desperate. He sat still, headphones halfway off one ear. The hallway light flicked under his door, shadows cutting across the carpet. He thought he heard the front door creak, but it was just the house settling again. He rewound the track, turned the mic gain down, tried again. Flow smoother this time. Calluses on my conscience, grinding for better noise. My city raised lost girls, tired moms, corner boys. I ain't the hardest out, just hardest trying. Hoping Spotify hear me before I stop signing assignments. He chuckled after that one. The rhyme almost hit perfect. Almost. A notification popped on his phone. Tree's group chat. Yo, Loft, you recording again? Drop something. He ignored it. The last time he sent them a track, they flamed him for rhyming faith with safe. Trey meant well, but his friends didn't get it yet. To them, rapping was another joke to post. To Jalen, it was the only thing keeping the noise in his head from exploding. He leaned back, eyes on the ceiling. The fan blades were coated in dust, spinning like lazy propellers above the battlefield of laundry. He wondered if Kendrick ever felt stupid talking to a microphone in a room this small. He pressed record again and let the beat ride without words. The drums felt like footsteps on cracked concrete. The bass hummed like a streetlight buzzing outside his window. He started mumbling syllables, just sounds, no meaning, until rhythm found him. Then the words surfaced, uninvited but perfect. I've been drowning in the silence, trying to breathe in color. My dreams sound loud, but the rent sound louder. Mom says sleep. I say maybe after, when these 16 bars buy her a day off faster. He stopped, blinked. Something in that last line stung. He kept it. He saved the project file. Loft_demo1.wav. Yeah, the laptop fan wheezed like it was tired too. He pulled off the headphones and let the house sounds flood back in. The hum of the fridge, a car alarm somewhere distant, maybe the early buses starting their routes. 1:56 a.m. He scrolled his SoundCloud page. 2 followers, both friends. His last track, Paper Skin, had 49 plays and 4 comments. 2 laughing emojis, 1 and 1 bro stop. He hovered over the upload button anyway. Yo, he whispered to no one. What's the worst that happens? He clicked upload. Title, White Noise and Hand-Me-Down Dreams, Freestyle. Tags, hip-hop, lo-fi, bedroom rap. While it processed, he stared at the spinning circle. It looked like the moon reflected in water, close, but unreachable. He grabbed his hoodie, the one with faded Southridge High Track Team lettering, and went outside to the porch. Chen. The night was cool, the kind of cold that carried faraway sirens and the smell of fried food from the corner store. He sat on the steps, scrolling through other people's tracks. Local kids posting trap beats, drill verses, even one country trap remix. Everyone chasing sound the same way he was chasing breath. The streetlight above flickered, turning his shadow on and off like a heartbeat. He pulled out a small notebook, pages filled with ideas, half verses, reminders like study rhyme pockets and watch Cole's Dollar and a Dream Tour doc again. At the bottom of one page he'd written, make noise until they hear you. A bus rumbled past. He imagined his mom asleep in the break room, head tilted back, hands smelling faintly of sanitizer. He pictured the song reaching her somehow, playing through a phone she barely had time to check. Maybe one day. His SoundCloud pinged. 1 play. Then 2. Then a comment. Keep at it, bro. You sound hungry. He smiled, almost laughed. It wasn't much, but it was oxygen. He went back inside, closed the door quietly so it wouldn't wake the ghosts of exhaustion that haunted the place. He plugged his phone in, collapsed onto the bed still wearing the hoodie. The laptop screen dimmed, still open on the waveform. Static whispered softly from the speakers, the beat's tail end looping in low volume, like it refused to end before he did. Before sleep took him, he scribbled a line in his notebook. Even the white noise got rhythm if you listen long enough. He didn't know it yet, but that would be the line people quoted months later under reposts and reaction videos and stitched TikToks. For now, it was just a kid's secret promise whispered into static. The screen went black. The room fell silent except for the soft click of the ceiling fan keeping time. Its steady 1-2, 1-2, a beat waiting for the next verse to begin. Chapter 2. Upload Anxiety. The next morning hit like hangover light, too bright for a dream that still smelled like midnight dust. Jalen's phone alarm went off with a default tone he hated. Radar. The sound that reminded him of every late homework and missed bus. He blinked against the screen glow. Notifications stacked like cards. SoundCloud pings, Instagram DMs, group chat chaos. For a half second, he smiled. Then he scrolled. Treboy, yo Loft this you? Jaden_SSN. Bro really said rent sound louder, _pretty_V. This actually kinda deep? Treboy. Nah, but FR who mixed this in a microwave. He groaned and shoved the phone under his pillow. The walls muffled the world for a second. His chest thudded with that quiet embarrassment that burns hotter than anger. Then he remembered. School. He sat up, wiped his face, and looked at the old laptop still open on his crate desk. The project file glowed, paused mid-waveform, as if waiting for him to fix what couldn't be fixed yet. Saw. He closed it. He'd fix himself first. Hey, the bus smelled like overripe fruit snacks and wet hoodies. Jalen sat near the back, headphones on, hoodie up. His track, White Noise and Hand-Me-Down Dreams, played on repeat. Not because he loved it, but because he was dissecting it. Every line, every breath that came too late, every pop of static, every moment that almost sounded professional. The beat still hit, though. That chopped soul loop, the keep holding on. Sample still got under his skin. It made the world feel like a movie he hadn't finished watching. He watched trees blur past the window, thin mist rising from the drainage ditches like ghosts stretching after sleep. Two freshmen near the front argued about who had better sneakers. Someone's Bluetooth speaker leaked drill music from 3 rows up. He wasn't the loudest kid on the bus. He wasn't loud anywhere, really. But inside his headphones, he was every version of himself he wanted to be. When he stepped off the bus, the air was sharp and cool. Southridge High stood like a giant concrete sigh. Gray walls, chipped mascot mural, flags that never waved right. He pulled his hoodie tighter and made it through the metal detectors. Trey found him at the lockers, grin wide and loud enough for 2 people. Yo, SoundCloud superstar, Trey said, slapping his shoulder. Bruh, don't start, Jalen muttered. Trey laughed. Nah, for real though, you kinda snapped on that second verse. Bro, the mixing. I know. I'm just saying, if the beat didn't sound like it was underwater, shut up. You might actually go viral for real. Jalen rolled his eyes and spun his combo lock. Why you even listen if you just gon' clown? Because it's you, bro. Gotta support the homie/entertainment. Trey leaned against the locker, scrolling on his phone. Look, even my cousin liked it. Said you sound like early J. Cole. He turned the screen. J-Loft got potential under a repost. Jalen paused. A tiny laugh escaped. She really said that. Swear to God, don't get cocky though. He shrugged. Nah, I'm just trying to improve. Good, 'cause the cafeteria's waiting for your mixtape release party. Trey grinned. First period, English. Miss Rivera's class was half lecture, half therapy session. Today they were discussing voice in writing. When she asked who had something to share, Jalen's stomach knotted. He looked around, same faces, same inside jokes bouncing around the room. He wondered what would happen if he said, I rap. Would that count as voice? He stayed quiet. Miss Rivera moved on. Voice isn't just how you sound, it's how you make people feel you've been somewhere, like you earned your words. That line stuck in his ribs. He typed it in his notes app between lyric ideas. By lunch, he'd half convinced himself the upload didn't matter. The internet would forget by tomorrow. But, of course, the internet never forgets when it's you. He sat at the corner table near the vending machines, the unofficial spot for people who didn't fit anywhere specific. Trey and Malik were mid-argument about basketball stats when Jalen's name hit the air like a dropped plate. Yo, that's the SoundCloud dude, someone shouted from the next table. A group of seniors laughed, one of them holding up his phone. Play that joint, the Rent one. Trey's grin disappeared. Ah, hell. The speaker on the kid's phone crackled as Jalen's voice echoed across the lunchroom. Dreams in a lunchbox, reheated and microwaved. The laughter came before the bar finished. Bro really said microwaved. Yo, this that broke boy poetry? Jalen's throat tightened. He stared at his tray like maybe he could sink into it. Trey stood, puffing up. Aight, chill out. Y'all just mad you ain't got the guts to try. The senior smirked. Ain't no one hating, man. Just keep it to yourself next time. The bell rang like mercy. After school, Jalen walked home instead of taking the bus. The sky was overcast, the kind of gray that made the world look like it had a filter on. His backpack thumped against his shoulder with every step. He replayed the lunchroom scene again and again, like a video he couldn't delete. He hated how their laughter lingered in his chest longer than the applause he imagined. Halfway home, his phone buzzed. Unknown. You the kid from South Ridge with the song after mom? Unknown. That line hit hard. You got more? He stopped walking, read it again. No username, just a random local number. He typed back, "Who this?" but they never replied. Still, he couldn't stop rereading the first message. That night, he opened the same project file. The cursor blinked, patient. He listened again, this time not to judge but to understand. The flaws still screamed, but the truth whispered louder. He started a new track folder, demo2_beatideas. Chris had sent him a pack of loops earlier, a friend of a friend who played drums at church and could maybe help mix one day. He dragged one into the session. Warm bass line, slow snare rolls, faint hum of an electric piano like dusk turned into sound. He closed his eyes and mumbled melodies until a rhythm caught. This beat felt cleaner. Not professional, but less like struggle and more like motion. Words slipped out before he could think. If I crash, let it be on my own terms. At least I'm steering, even if I never learn. Every hater in the comments just fuel for my burn. I'm cooking something holy in this broken urn. He nodded to himself, half smiling. That one felt real. He switched on his phone's front camera and hit record. Yo, quick verse, just trying to test this new flow. He rapped quietly, shoulders moving with the rhythm. The room light flickered, giving him a half-shadowed look. He posted the 20-second clip on his private Instagram story with one caption, "Still learning. In." An hour later, he got a reply. From V_draws that same quiet girl from art class. This hit. Ever think about cover art? He hesitated. Not yet. She typed fast. I can sketch something if you want. Your song had like a tired piece to it. I felt that. Tired piece. He'd never heard anyone describe his sound like that. He replied, Bet, let's work. His mom came home at 11:30 p.m., keys jingling like wind chimes of fatigue. Jay, you still up? She called softly. Yeah. Homework done? Almost. She poked her head into his room, scrubs wrinkled, eyes heavy. The smell of sanitizer and cheap coffee filled the space. Don't stay up too late, baby. You know you don't wake up right. I know, Ma. She smiled weakly. Heard you've been making music again. He froze. Who told you that? Miss Rivera saw your SoundCloud link on the school forum. Oh. She said it's brave to share your voice. Jalen looked down. People at school ain't see it that way. They will, eventually. She stepped in, kissed his forehead, and whispered, Your daddy used to say, noise just means people heard you. Remember that. He nodded. She left the door cracked open. After she fell asleep, he put his headphones back on. The beat from earlier looped quietly. Low, warm, steady. He layered new vocals, experimenting with tone, letting emotions stretch across bars instead of hiding behind them. The house creaked again, fridge moaning like an old preacher, fan clicking time. He whispered to the mic. Ain't no silence deep enough to bury what I'm chasing. Every fear another verse I'm facing. They laughed at the dream, said I need replacing. But the night's my label and the grind my agent. He saved the project as demo2_workin.wav. He didn't post it. Not yet. Some songs weren't for the world. They were for rebuilding. He turned off the light. The screen dimmed again, showing only the reflection of a kid learning how to turn pain into percussion. Tomorrow, the same hallways would wait. The same laughter. The same noise. But this time, he'd walk through it with headphones on and a heartbeat set to 90 BPM hope. Chapter 3. The School Hallway Cipher. Fridays at South Ridge felt different, like the whole building had a pulse. The hallways buzzed with sneaker squeaks, locker slams, and beats leaking from phones. Teachers pretended they couldn't hear it. Students pretended they didn't care about anything else. By lunch, everyone's energy bent toward the same gravitational pull, the front hallway cipher. It wasn't official, but it was tradition. Someone would start tapping on a locker or beating on the cafeteria table, and within minutes, a circle formed, shoes scraping tile, laughter echoing, kids daring each other to spit something. Jalen usually avoided it. He'd stand near the vending machine, pretending to check his phone, nodding along but never stepping in. That Friday, though, fate wasn't giving him a choice. Yo, Loft. Trey's voice bounced down the hallway like an announcement. Jalen froze halfway to class. Trey jogged up, grinning like he'd just discovered fire. Bruh, you gotta come see this. Malik brought his Bluetooth speaker and the beat's crazy. Jalen sighed. I'm good. Nah, for real, you need this. Time for J-Loft to go public. Public like, right now? Trey clapped a hand on his shoulder. Exactly right now. Before he could protest, Trey was already dragging him toward the crowd near the main stairwell. The bass thudded through the floor, a slow, grimy loop, with a thick kick drum and the faint crackle of vinyl under it. Someone had chopped a horn sample, letting it flare every few bars like a warning. Malik stood in the center, hoodie half off one shoulder, nodding in rhythm. "Aye, we got contenders today?" he shouted. The circle widened. Phones lifted. Someone yelled, "Where J-Loft at? He the SoundCloud kid, right?" Jalen's stomach tightened. He tried to step back, but Trey pushed him gently forward. There he is." The crowd parted a little. The hallway lights buzzed overhead, half flickering. Malik smirked. "Aight, Loft. We heard you got them bars. Prove it." Jalen hesitated. I didn't even... Trey whispered, "Just do that verse you did last night, bro. You got this." Jalen's hands were sweating. He could feel everyone's eyes, that mix of curiosity and amusement that always came before either respect or ridicule. He swallowed. The beat looped again. Slow drums, heavy snare, horn stab like a heartbeat skipping. He started soft. Ceiling fan halo, pray I don't spin out of phase. A few kids nodded. Someone said, "Okay." He continued, voice finding rhythm like steps on uneven ground. Dreams in a lunchbox, reheated and microwaved. Mama 2 jobs deep, sleep talking through better days. I got a couple of sounds from the back. Encouragement, not mockery yet. Then he slipped. His tongue tangled on the next line. The beat kept moving, but his flow stumbled. He froze for half a breath, eyes darting. Malik grinned. "Come on, bro, don't choke now." Laughter rippled around him. Jalen tried to recover, jumped to a different line. "City loud, I'm quiet, just trying to make my sound." But the moment had already tilted against him. The rhythm broke, the verse cracked, and someone near the lockers yelled, "Man, turn that off." Malik snatched the mic, really just a pen they were using for fun, and jumped in with an improvised verse that rode the beat effortlessly. The crowd went wild. Phones recorded. Jalen stepped back, the air thick with secondhand embarrassment. Trey looked torn between defending him and pretending he wasn't there. The bell rang, merciful and cruel all at once. He walked fast to the bathroom, slipping inside before anyone could talk to him. And The stall smelled like bleach and graffiti markers. He locked himself in one, leaned against the door, and let out a quiet, frustrated laugh that turned into silence. He pulled out his phone, replayed the beat in his head. His fingers tapped the rhythm on his thigh. He mouthed the lines again, this time clean, perfect, too late. The worst part wasn't that they laughed. It was that he knew he could have done better. After school, Trey found him sitting on the bleachers by the track. Yo, my bad, bro. I ain't think they'd act like that. Jalen shrugged. It's cool. It's not, though. Jalen looked out at the empty field, grass dull under the cloudy sky. It's whatever. I ain't built for that crowd yet. Trey nodded. Yet. They sat in silence for a minute. The wind carried faint cheers from the soccer team practicing across the field. Trey scrolled through his phone. They already posted the clip. Jalen winced. Of course they did. It's not even that bad, Trey said quickly. You fumbled one line, but the start was fire. He handed him the phone. Jalen watched the video, his own face mid-stumble, expression caught between focus and panic. The comments were a split between laughing emojis and... He was cooking till he lost the spoon. He locked the screen and handed it back. I'll fix it. Trey raised an eyebrow. Fix what? My delivery, my breath, the pocket, all of it. Bro, you sound like a coach breaking down game tape. Exactly. That night, he stood in front of the mirror with the beat on repeat. He rapped until his throat hurt. Then he rapped again, softer, sharper, experimenting with tone and pauses. He recorded himself on his phone, watched the playback. Each take got a little cleaner. The words started feeling like his again. Between takes, he studied videos of live freestyles, Kendrick on Power 106, Saba's Colors performance, old clips of Big L. He noticed how they all moved. Shoulders loose, head nodding slightly ahead of the beat. They didn't chase the rhythm. They guided it. See? He tried again, whispering the first lines of his verse. Ceiling fan halo. He breathed in time with the drum. He could almost feel the confidence settling back into his bones. Saturday morning, he met Chris for the first time. Chris was older by a year, wore a beanie year-round, and smelled faintly of incense and studio cables. They linked at the youth center after Trey mentioned Jalen was serious about music. Chris led him to a small back room. We record in here sometimes, he said, pointing to a half-set-up mic stand, a laptop, and 2 beat-up studio monitors. Jalen's eyes widened. This yours? Sorta. I help out with the setup and they let me use it when it's free. Chris clicked on a track. The beat came alive, lo-fi drums, deep bass, a looped guitar lick that shimmered like early morning light. You rap, right? Chris asked. Try to. Then rap. Don't overthink it. Jalen took a breath, nodded, and let the verse spill. Ceiling fan halo. Pray I don't spin out of phase. Mama 2 jobs deep, sleep talking through better days. Dreams in a lunchbox, reheated and microwaved, but I still serve hope on a paper plate. The last line came out smoother than ever. He opened his eyes. Chris was smiling. See, that's a pocket. You got tone, bro, just needs polish. You think so? I know so. You ever record with layers, ad-libs, doubles, all that? Jalen shook his head. Nah, I only got Audacity. Chris grinned. We gon' change that. They spent hours experimenting. Chris showed him how to record doubles. 1 main vocal, 1 quiet shadow underneath. How to keep still while rapping. How to keep his mouth the same distance from the mic. They laughed every time the old software glitched. By the end of the day, they had a rough version of the hallway verse. Cleaner, smoother, alive. Chris leaned back. This is what I mean. You got heart. Internet laughs come and go, but you can't teach hunger. Jalen looked at the waveform on the screen. It looked like hope drawn in frequency. "Appreciate you, man," he said quietly. Later that night, he posted a short clip from their session, just 10 seconds of him nodding to the beat. Half the verse, no hashtags. He turned off his phone and left it on his desk. When he checked again hours later, it had already been reposted by 3 accounts. Comments read, "Yo, this the same kid from the hallway? He improved fast. Aye, he got potential FR." He smiled, shaking his head. The internet was fickle, but at least it heard him. He messaged Chris. "We gotta do more sessions, FR." Chris replied, "Say less, I got beats for days." Sunday night. He sat by the window, headphones on, listening to their new mix. The world outside hummed cars, faint laughter from down the block, the sound of someone's dog barking at nothing. He thought about the hallway, the laughter, the stumble, the crowd. Then he thought about the line he'd written that morning. "Ain't no choke if the heart's still breathin'." He whispered it again, just to hear it in the air. He opened his notebook, titled a new page, Hallway Lessons, and wrote under it, "Never rap for the crowd. Never fear the stumble. Keep your mic clean. Keep your voice cleaner." The ceiling fan spun slow above him, steady and forgiving. And he smiled. The grind had officially started. Chapter 4. The Basement Sessions. The first time Jalen met Chris, the whole thing felt like an accident that God had scheduled anyway. It was a Sunday afternoon, and the church basement smelled like dust and grape juice. His mom had begged him to help carry folding chairs after service. He agreed, partly because he loved her, mostly because guilt hit different when it came with a gospel soundtrack. He was dragging a stack of metal chairs across the floor when he heard It's a Rhythm coming from behind a half-open door. Soft, syncopated taps against rubber pads, rolling hi-hats, and then a snare crack that sounded too clean to belong in that old church. Jalen peeked inside. A kid a few years older than him sat at an electric drum set, headphones halfway off, shoulders swaying. His foot pounded a muted kick that thumped like heartbeats under stained glass. A gospel organ loop played from an old desktop beside him. Warm, crooked, holy. The dude looked up mid-groove. "You lost, bro?" "Nah," Jalen said. What is that?" Chris grinned, stick still spinning in his hand. That's FL Studio, my guy. God's other instrument." Jalen stepped closer, staring at the monitor. The interface was chaos. Color-coded channels, waveform patterns, and little green blocks bouncing like they had a pulse. So? You make beats?" Chris shrugged. "When I'm not backing the choir. Pastor let me keep this setup down here after practice. You rap or something?" Jalen hesitated, then nodded. "Yeah, I try to." Chris smiled like he'd been waiting for that answer. "Then what you doing standing there? Sit down. Let's cook." That afternoon turned into 6 hours. 10. Chris laid down a loop on the spot-muted kicks, gospel organ chords stretched through reverb, dusty hi-hats tapping like a church tambourine on low battery. It sounded like Sunday service collided with a bedroom rap session, just as messy and holy. "All right," Chris said. "We got the bones. You got words?" Jalen flipped open his notebook. He had dozens of verses, fragments of thoughts, prayers written sideways. He found one he'd written weeks ago titled Basement Light. He took a deep breath and read it quietly over the loop. "Mama said the Lord gon' bless me if I keep my head high. But the rent late again, so my faith gets shy. Basement light flicker. Feel like God blinked twice. Still I'm rapping like I'm trying to turn these tears into mics." Chris whistled. "Bro, that's hard. Let's record that." The setup was rough. A hand-me-down condenser mic, pop filter made from a sock, wires duct taped to the table. But the energy in that basement felt cleaner than any studio. Dinged. When Jalen's voice came through the headphones, it wasn't just bars, it was testimony. They spent the next 3 weeks like that. After school, after work, after everything, meeting in that same basement until the fluorescent lights buzzed themselves hoarse. Pizza boxes stacked on a broken amp. Mountain Dew cans doubling as mic stands. Snare drums pushed aside to make room for cables and notebooks. Every night they built something new. Songs that sounded like praise and pain-shaking hands. One night, Chris leaned back in his chair and said, "You know what I like about your stuff, bro? It sounds hungry. Not thirsty, hungry." Jalen laughed. "Ain't sure there's a difference sometimes." "There is," Chris said. "Thirsty is begging to be seen. Hungry is begging to be better." That line stuck in Jalen's head for weeks. He started experimenting, looping vocal layers, pitching his ad-libs down to sound like a shadow arguing with his own voice. Chris showed him tricks. Sidechain compression, swing settings, EQ balance. They learned by breaking things first. Sometimes the speakers would pop mid-mix, the kick too heavy for the old monitors. They'd both freeze, praying nothing had fried. Then laugh it off, restart the session, and keep going. At one point, Jalen said, "Yo, imagine if we actually got something on Spotify." Chris didn't even look up from the screen. "We will. You just gotta bleed long enough for the algorithm to notice." By the 4th week, they had 3 songs. All rough, all full of static, but alive. The best one was called Basement Gospel. It opened with Chris's live hi-hat taps, a rolling rhythm that sounded halfway between a trap beat and a church revival. Over it, Jalen rapped like his lungs had stories to confess. "God hear me through a USB. I'm looping hope like MPCs. If I got mama tired, I'm wired on need, trying to turn my doubts into melodies." The last line cracked his voice, but Chris waved him off. "Leave it in," he said. "Perfection don't move people. Honesty do." They listened back on loop, sitting in silence while the track faded into a faint hum. Jalen whispered, "You think people would actually play this?" Chris chuckled. "Bro, I'm people, and I already hit replay." At school, Jalen started carrying a flash drive on his keychain like it was jewelry. Inside were the basement sessions, unfinished, unmixed, but his. Trey asked once, "Yo, you still rapping in your closet?" "Nah," Jalen said with a grin. "Upgraded to the church basement, holy acoustics." On weekends, they recorded till 3 a.m. Sometimes they argued about beats, Chris wanting more gospel chords, Jalen pushing for grit. Other times they just sat in silence, letting the hum of old amps fill the gaps words couldn't. There was a kind of magic in that exhaustion, when both of them were too tired to pretend the dream wasn't fragile. The first snowfall came early that winter. The church parking lot turned white, and inside, the air was cold enough to see their breath. Chris wore fingerless gloves while mixing. "Oh, man, one day," he said, blowing on his hands, "we gonna look back and laugh at this." Jalen smiled. "Or cry." "Nah, laugh, 'cause by then, we'll have heaters that work." They finished their final take of the night, a song called Cold Floors, Hot Faith. The beat had a steady muted kick, a trembling organ loop, and hi-hats like gentle rain. It felt like everything they were, barely balanced, but warm. Jalen laid down the closing verse. "Ain't no choir, but I'm singing through pain. Basement prayers, 808S in the rain. Every flaw sound holy on tape. Guess the Lord mix rough drafts in his own way." When he finished, silence filled the room. Even the pipes seemed to stop rattling. Chris finally said, "You ever think maybe that's why he gave you the words? So you could show people what faith sound like when it ain't perfect? Jalen didn't answer. He just nodded, eyes fixed on the flickering monitor. They saved the project and sat there, side by side, watching the file render. The progress bar crept slowly, glowing blue against the dark basement wall. Two kids watching proof of existence form pixel by pixel. When it finished, Jalen copied it to his flash drive and slipped it into his pocket like something sacred. Chris yawned, stood, stretched. Yo, I'm beat. You good to lock up? Yeah. Same time tomorrow. Jalen smiled. Always. That night, walking home under the orange streetlights, snow crunching under his sneakers, Jalen played Cold Floors' Hot Faith through his phone speakers. The beat sounded different out here, colder, lonelier, but honest. He thought of his mom, still at work. Of Chris, back in the basement, maybe asleep on the drum stool. Of himself, somewhere between a dream and a demo. When the organ loop faded, he stopped walking, looked up at the sky, and whispered, "Thank you for the basement." He didn't know it yet, but those sessions would become the spine of everything that followed, the sound people would later call grit gospel. The texture of hunger turned harmony. The proof that sometimes, before the spotlight, the real stage is underground. And in that basement, among the pizza boxes and prayers, J Loft was born for real. Chapter 5. Algorithm Lessons. The glow of Jalen's monitor was the only light in the room. A soft blue rectangle bleeding onto his face, highlighting the tight focus in his eyes. The walls were plastered with scraps of notebook paper, half-finished verses, crossed-out lines, quotes from interviews with Cole and Kendrick. One note read, in black Sharpie, "Nobody gonna find you if you don't tell them where to look." Tonight wasn't about writing bars. It was about learning the game. In second. He'd spent the last 2 weeks reading Reddit threads on music marketing for beginners, watching YouTube tutorials about the Spotify algorithm, and taking notes like it was a college course. The tabs on his screen looked like a map of his obsession. DistroKid Upload Portal. TikTok Creator Studio. Spotify for Artists. Best times to post music reels. He scrolled through analytics on his latest upload. Late fees, rough draft. 57 plays in 3 days. 8 likes. A 1 repost from Trey, of course. Yeah, Jalen leaned back, exhaled. 57. Yo, Trey said over FaceTime, his voice lazy and cracked with laughter. That's 57 more than 0, bro. You trendin' locally. Ah, man, that's not trending, Jalen muttered. That's just my cousins and your girl's little brother. Still counts, Trey shrugged. You expect Cole numbers after 3 uploads? Chill, you building. But Jalen couldn't chill. He couldn't stop thinking about all the SoundCloud artists who blew up overnight. The ones who dropped one emotional freestyle at 2 a.m. and woke up viral. Every scroll through his For You page felt like a reminder that he was late to the party. Days blurred together. Jalen would wake up at 6 a.m. to make his mom breakfast before she left for her first job. She'd squeeze his shoulder on the way out, murmuring, "Don't stay up too late, baby," even though she knew he always did. Then school, then homework, then hours lost to tweaking 10-second snippets for TikTok, making sure the drop hit right at second 7, adding captions, hashtags, transitions. He didn't dance, didn't clown. He just stared into the lens, hoodie up, spitting bars like he was confessing to it. He'd whisper one more and record again. And again. And again. Beat playing in his headphones. Tight snare. Mellow 808S. A clean piano loop that repeats like the tick of a clock. Something moody but determined. A beat that sounds like progress disguised as insomnia. By week 3, he started to see patterns in the chaos. He realized when he posted at 4 p.m., The plays spiked faster. When he added the tag #bedroom rap or #lyrical, retention went up. When he shot videos with that broken lamp in the corner casting half light on his face, comments called it raw. He was learning the algorithm like a language. One night, Chris came over with his laptop and 2 sodas. "You good?" he asked, setting his bag down. Jalen nodded, eyes still glued to the analytics dashboard. "Look, check this. 317 plays on Basement Gospel. That's like..." "A jump," Chris finished, smiling. "Nice, it's working." Jalen rubbed his face. "Yeah, but look, every time it jumps, it just dies again. 2-day high, then silence." Chris nodded thoughtfully. "That's the algorithm for you. It don't care how good the song is, just how often people click it. Feels like I'm making content, not music." Chris chuckled. "Welcome to 2025, bro." A week later, Basement Gospel hit 1,000 plays. It happened overnight, from a clip Jalen almost didn't post, a snippet of him in Chris's basement, hoodie off, sweat on his brow, spitting into the mic with raw emotion. "Told Ma I'd make it out the 1 bedroom someday. Still counting blessings in the rent due Sunday. I ain't got chains, but my words gon' shine. 'Cause even Wi-Fi low can still connect you to the grind." The comments came slow at first. "Real talk. This sound like early Cole." Then more. The dopamine hit hard. He refreshed every 10 minutes. The blue line on his graph climbed higher. He took screenshots, texted Trey. Trey replied, "See? Bro, you got something." For a full day, Jalen floated. Then silence. No new comments, no new likes. The graph plateaued like a heartbeat flatlining. He stared at the screen, heart heavy. It was like shouting into a stadium that briefly echoed back, and then went quiet again. He wanted to scream. But instead, he opened a new project file in FL Studio. New beat, slow, reflective deep kick, faint vocal samples reversed, bass like a heartbeat underwater. He mumbled into the mic, voice low. "Thought I found a lane, but the road looped back. Streams dried up, and I felt that crack. But every fall's a verse, every hurt's a track. I'm building something real even if it don't stack." He saved the file as loop_3am_v1. He didn't upload it. Not yet. At 2 a.m., he opened Instagram. His mom's last post popped up, her uniform selfie captioned, "Another double shift. Gotta keep the lights on?" Jalen stared at it for a long time. He whispered, "I'ma make it count, Ma." Then he turned the mic back on. New beat, same hunger. Beat, faint vinyl crackle, slow gospel chords, tambourine hit on the offbeat, a sound like Faith on loop. He leaned in and started rapping. Quiet, focused, almost praying. "If it take 1,000 nights to find one spark, I'll light my verse with the flicker from the dark." And even though nobody was watching, it didn't feel silent anymore. Chapter 6:3. AM loops. The night had that sound again. That kind of silence you could hear. The hum of Jalen's laptop fan filled the space, a steady rhythm against the faint hiss of his cheap mic's static. His eyes were dry from staring too long at the FL Studio timeline loop stretching endlessly, colored blocks repeating like he was watching his own frustration take shape in pixels. He hadn't written a finished verse in 2 weeks. The cursor blinked like it was mocking him. The beat on loop tonight was different. The beat, soft hums buried under reverb, keys like underwater glass tapping in slow motion. The bass doesn't punch, it breathes. The snare lands once every 4 bars, lazy, tired, like it's been up as long as he has. He'd called it Insomnia Type 2. The title was a joke that wasn't really a joke. His mom had gone to bed hours ago. The apartment was quiet except for the creaks from the heat pipes and the occasional car sliding past on wet asphalt outside. The city at 3 a.m. was a ghost, and he was the only one left awake, trying to find a sound that could explain what it felt like to be almost good enough. He hit spacebar again. The beat played. He mumbled under his breath. Had a dream I was big, woke up small again. Every line I write feel like callin' again. Heaven's inbox full, can't log in again. Guess I'll make peace with the fall again. He frowned. Too heavy, too forced. Deleted the track. He opened YouTube. Kendrick Lamar writing process interview. Tyler, the creator on creativity and fear. J. Cole, how to find your voice. He'd seen all of them before, but tonight he needed them like medicine. Kendrick talked about patience. Tyler said, don't chase validation. Cole said, you don't find your sound. It finds you when you're honest. Jalen stared at the screen. Be honest, he whispered. He looked around his room. The notebook stack by the bed, the pizza box on the floor, the empty bottle of Arizona tea next to the mic stand. So, this was honesty. Messy, broke, half awake, dreaming too big for his budget. He turned the mic back on. And new beat, soft ambient pads scattered hi-hats like raindrops on a tin roof, bass line deep and slow like breathing. It sounds like loneliness with a melody. He leaned close, eyes half closed. Ain't no trophies on this desk, just dust and open tabs. Got dreams I can't afford yet. But they mine. I'll pay in raps. Every night feel like a rerun, well, of a fight I can't escape. Trying to write my way to daylight, but the loop just won't break. He stopped recording, sat there. The loop played again, and again, and again. He rested his forehead on his hands, elbows pressed to the desk. This wasn't writer's block. It was soul block. Every verse felt like a copy of the last one, just rearranged sadness. He clicked through old files. Late fees _ final.wav. Basement gospel _ V2. Mom track _ draft. He pressed play on each. Every song sounded like almost. His phone buzzed. A text from Chris. You bro you up? Got this new sample pack. Gospel chops. Real warm stuff. You want to cook tomorrow? Jalen stared at the screen. His thumbs hovered, then typed, Nay, bet, I need to touch some new air. He hit send, then opened a new file. Beat idea, a loop of faint organ chords pitched down 2 semitones, bass swelling underneath. The tempo slow enough that it feels like a heartbeat. He didn't rap, he just talked into the mic. If you listening to this one day, maybe it means I ain't quit. Maybe I figured out how to turn all this quiet into sound. Maybe this is just me, practicing being real. He hit save. Named the file. 3amconfession.wav. Outside, a siren wailed somewhere in the distance. He pulled his hoodie tighter, cracked the window. The city breathed in cold and diesel. He whispered to no one. One day. And for a second, a small, flickering second, it didn't feel hopeless, just unfinished. He let the beat run again and started scribbling in the dark. Every failure sound like rhythm if you loop it long enough. Chapter 7. The Open Mic. The flyer looked cheap. A black and white printout with the Cypher Spot Open Mic Fridays 8 p.m. scrawled across the top in bold Sharpie font. Tree had slapped it onto Jalen's locker between periods, grinning like he'd just signed him to a record deal. So, time to leave the bedroom, J. Loft, Trey said. We taking it outside. Jalen stared at the paper like it was a test he didn't study for. I ain't ready, he muttered. Bro, you been ready. You just scared. All week, that flyer followed him. Taped to his wall, folded in his pocket, sitting on his desk beside his mic stand like it was daring him to back out. Every time he looked at it, his stomach turned. Every time he rapped into the mic that week, he imagined faces judgmental, bored, unimpressed. But something in him, the same thing that made him stay up till 3 a.m., said go anyway. Friday came. Cold night, wind biting through his hoodie as he and Trey caught the bus into the city. No, Jalen's stomach was a knot. He kept checking his phone, pretending to scroll through lyrics even though he already knew them by heart. Trey nudged him. Yo, relax. You gonna kill it. Yeah, Jalen said quietly. Or die trying. The cipher spot wasn't much a dim basement tucked under a barber shop, walls covered in stickers and Sharpie signatures. A hand-painted mural of Tupac and Lauryn Hill stared down from the back wall. The air smelled like burnt coffee and cheap cologne. There were maybe 30 people there. Mostly local rappers, college kids, a few girlfriends filming on their phones. A small stage with a single mic and a banner that said, "Speak your truth." Trey signed them up at the front table. J. Loft and Traverse, he wrote on the sheet, giving Jalen a wink. Jalen's hands were sweating through his hoodie sleeves. He clutched his phone, scrolling through his verse again and again. Don't freeze, Trey whispered. Just do what you do at home. Home don't got 30 people staring. Then pretend they don't exist. The host, a woman with box braids and a voice like caffeine, called out names, hyping every act like they were legends. A kid in a bucket hat rapped over a trap beat from his phone. A girl with purple hair did a spoken word piece about gentrification. The crowd snapped, clapped, cheered. Then, next up, give it up for J-Loft and Traverse. Trey whooped. Let's go, bro. They climbed the stage. The lights hit hard, yellow, hot, blinding. Jalen's heartbeat roared in his ears. Trey queued up the beat on his phone and nodded to the host. Beat, muted kicks, gospel organ, dusty hi-hats like Sunday service colliding with bedroom rap. It hums with warmth and grit, alive with spirit. The first bar dropped. Trey came in with his verse, confident, all rhythm and swagger. The crowd vibed with him immediately. Then it was Jalen's turn. He stepped up to the mic. His mouth opened, nothing came out. 1 second. 2, 3. His throat locked, his vision tunneled. The mic felt heavy as concrete. A few murmurs from the back. A cough. Trey shot him a look, not angry, just waiting. Yo, Trey whispered. Breathe. Jalen closed his eyes. Inhale. Exhale. He heard the beat, that gospel organ, the heartbeat kick, the hi-hats whispering faith. He leaned in. Mom working doubles, I'm working these lines, trying to turn midnight oil to a light that shines. Ain't no trust fund here, just hope in rhymes. Every prayer I spit been declined sometimes. The crowd murmured, heads nodded. He kept going, his voice steady now, finding rhythm in fear. Got dreams in a folder named One Day Soon. Trying to bloom from the carpet of a one-room room. I ain't rich, but I got sound to assume, and I'm trying to make a record that my mom can consume. By the last bar, people were clapping. Trey slapped his back. There you go. Jalen smiled, small but real. He didn't kill it. He didn't bomb either. He survived. After their set, a man in a faded denim jacket came up. Mid-30s, scruffy beard, smell of incense. You got tone, kid, he said. Got presence. Your timing's rough, but your honesty? That's the stuff labels can't teach. Jalen blinked. Thanks. I run a little studio over on Vine Street. You should swing by. Bring your boy here, too. He handed them a card. Rico Banks, producer-engineer. On the ride home, Trey couldn't stop talking. Bro, that was it. You saw their faces? That old head was vibing. You just leveled up, my guy. Jalen stared out the window. The city lights smeared across the glass like streaks of gold. For the first time, the dream didn't feel far away. It felt reachable. Odd. He smiled. Yeah, maybe this is the start of something. Trey grinned. It's the start of everything. That night, back in his room, Jalen set his phone beside the mic. He didn't open FL Studio. Didn't record. Didn't post. He just sat there, letting the silence hum in his chest, remembering what it felt like when the crowd leaned in when his words mattered, even just for a few minutes. He whispered, "Next time, I don't freeze." Beat fades in his memory, gospel organ, warm bass, steady hi-hat like a heartbeat that won't stop. Chapter 8. Mama's Hands. The studio on Vine Street smelled like burnt incense and wood polish. Rico's spot wasn't big 2 rooms, one couch, a cracked window that let the city hum through. But to Jalen, it might as well have been Electric Lady Studios. Every wall was covered in foam panels and graffiti tags from local artists. There were old mics hanging from ceiling hooks, a half-dead lava lamp on the desk, and a single quote painted across one wall in red. So, make it mean something. Rico said it every time someone stepped in. He said it to Jalen that night too. They'd been working for hours, Chris on the drums, Jalen experimenting with takes that didn't feel right. Every verse sounded polished but hollow, like he was rapping to impress, not to confess. Rico leaned back in his chair, scratching his beard. "You got flow, kid. You got pen. But it's like, you're writing from your head, not your chest." Jalen blinked. "What you mean?" "I mean," Rico said, "I don't believe you yet." The words hit him harder than any critique online ever could. After the session, he rode the bus home in silence. The city looked washed in amber, streetlights flickering like tired eyes. He unlocked the apartment quietly. His mom was asleep on the couch, still in her uniform. Her name tag glinted in the TV's soft blue glow. Maria, home health aide. Her hands were still wrapped around a half-empty cup of tea, head resting on the armrest. He stared at her, really saw her for the first time in weeks. The faint scars from years of scrubbing, lifting, carrying, the calluses that looked like armor. Hands that never rested so he could dream. Something in his chest cracked open. He tiptoed to his room, powered up his laptop, and opened a new FL Studio file. Beat slow 90 BPM, the hum of a gospel choir sampled from an old record layered over a cracked vinyl loop. A faint organ chord glides underneath. It feels raw, timeless, like grief and gratitude shaking hands. He closed his eyes. Hit record. No punch-ins, no retakes, just his voice trembling, truthful. "Mama got work shoes older than my dreams. He'd still walk miles through pain, it seems. Fold in time like she fold them sheets. Turning over time into something to eat." He paused. The beat whispered between bars. "Told her one day I'd pay her back in peace. Not cash, but rest. A home where she sleep. No alarms, no calls, no beep, beep, beep. Just quiet, the kind you keep." He stopped recording, sat there, eyes wet, throat burning. It didn't feel like writing. It felt like bleeding in 4/4 time. At sunrise, he exported it and titled the file, "Mama's Hands." He didn't post it. Not yet. He played it through his headphones once, twice, then again on low volume, while brushing his teeth, while tying his shoes. Every time he heard it, he felt something shift, like the part of him that wanted to prove himself had finally shut up long enough for his heart to speak. That night, he showed it to Chris in the studio. Chris didn't say a word at first, just stared at the screen, listening. When the last line hit, he nodded slowly. That's it, Chris said. That's you. Rico walked in from the next room mid-playback. He froze, then smiled. Now that's a song, he said. That's the one that'll make people stop scrolling. Later that evening, Jalen sat with his mom at the kitchen table while she ate dinner rice, beans, and a piece of fried plantain. He told her about the song. I kinda wrote something about you, he said, embarrassed. About everything you do. I just wanted you to hear it first. She laughed softly. About me? I hope I sound better than them drill songs you play. He played it from his phone, speaker tinny, but clear. She listened without interrupting. When it ended, she was quiet for a long time. Then she reached across the table and touched his wrist. Her voice was soft. Baby, that's the most beautiful thing anyone's ever said to me. He smiled. It's just a song. She shook her head. No, that's your heart talking. That night, he uploaded it privately to SoundCloud Unlisted. No hashtags, no promo plan. Just a quiet upload with one line in the description. For Mama. He didn't care if it blew up. For once, that wasn't the point. He turned off the lights, lay on his bed, and listened to the last 30 seconds on loop, that gospel hum fading into vinyl crackle, like a heartbeat through static. Beat fades slowly warm, human, imperfect. The sound of truth finally being told. Chapter 9. The Viral Clip. It started like any other night, a half-empty bottle of ginger ale on the desk, half-finished verse looping through tinny headphones, and that familiar doubt humming under the bass line. Jay leaned back in his chair, rubbing his temples. The glow from his monitor painted his face in pale blue light. Chris was already packing up. Bro, just post it, he said, slinging his backpack over one shoulder. It's not mixed, Jay muttered. The levels are all over the place. Chris shrugged. Neither is life. They both laughed, but Jay felt that nervous twist in his gut. The freestyle was raw one take, no edits. Just him over a simple drum loop and a gospel chop Chris had found. But something in his tone felt different this time, sharper, more honest. So, on a whim, he opened TikTok, clipped 30 seconds of it, and captioned it. Just trying to make something real. He hit upload, turned off the light, and crashed into bed. The next morning, his phone was buzzing. At first, he thought it was a glitch. The notifications wouldn't stop. Likes, follows, duets. Someone had stitched his clip with a caption. Who is this dude? Another user was freestyling over his verse. Comments stacked faster than he could scroll. Bro snapped. Hey, that gospel flip is crazy. You can feel the hunger. 10,000 views by noon, 25K by dinner. His group chat was blowing up. Trey texted, You famous yet? Jay didn't reply. He just sat there, headphones on, watching the play count tick up in real time like it was breathing. Later that evening, he showed his mom. She was in the kitchen, still in her scrubs, reheating leftovers. Look, Ma, he said, holding out his phone. People are watching my video. She wiped her hands on a towel and squinted at the screen. 10,000? She said slowly. Views, he explained. On TikTok. That means... I know what TikTok is, she cut in, smiling faintly. So they like your music? Yeah, he said, grins spreading across his face. I think they really do. She nodded, soft but proud. Good, as long as you're still eating. He laughed. Always, Ma. That night, a small hip-hop blog called The Sound District posted a headline. J. Loft, the soul of the suburbs. They wrote about his unpolished honesty, his bedroom gospel style, and how you can hear the tension between faith and ambition in every verse. It wasn't Rolling Stone, but it was something. Chris sent the link at 2 a.m. "We in the blogs now. Told you this was gonna happen." Jay stared at it for a long time. He thought of all the late nights, the empty pizza boxes, the bad mixes, the silent uploads that went nowhere. For the first time, he didn't feel invisible. Duh. He didn't sleep much that night. Not from anxiety this time, but because his mind wouldn't stop racing with ideas, hooks, plans. When he finally crawled into bed, his phone buzzed again. Another comment. "Keep going, don't change." He smiled into the dark, whispering to no one in particular. "I won't." Beat, hazy drum, soft synth pads, snippets of crowd noise, the digital hum of a dream finally being heard. Chapter 10. The Local Buzz. The air around J Loft started to shift slow at first, like a record spinning up to speed. A month after the viral clip, people actually recognized him. Not everywhere, not like fame, but enough to make him double take when someone pointed and said, "Yo, ain't you that dude from TikTok?" He'd laugh, shrug, say, "Yeah, maybe," like it wasn't looping in his head all day. The first show came through Trey, a local cafe downtown, mismatched couches, fairy lights, the smell of espresso and dust. They called it the Den, and every Friday, they let up-and-comers perform for tips and exposure, mostly exposure. Chris lugged his laptop and MIDI controller through the door, grinning. "You ready to make suburban history, bro?" Jay smiled, though his stomach twisted. "Let's just not get booed." When they started, the crowd was small, a dozen people, maybe less, but something happened halfway through their set. The track dropped. That familiar gospel organ flipped into a trap groove and heads started nodding. By the end, a few people stood, clapped. One girl shouted, "Run that back." Afterward, a guy from the local college radio station came up, shaking Jay's hand. "Yo, man, I host Basement Frequency on WPRX. You gotta come by and talk about your sound." Jay blinked. Sure, yeah, anytime." The Basement Frequency interview dropped the next week. The host called him the bridge between soul and suburbia. He didn't totally know what that meant, but it sounded good. Then came the DM from a small podcast, Unsigned Hype Hour. Then a repost from a local promoter. Then finally, the email. "Spotify for artists. You've received new streaming revenue, $48.27. Jay stared at it like it was a check from the universe. He screenshotted it, sent it to Chris. Jay, "We up." Chris, 48 whole ones, bro. We rich." They used it to buy pizza, 2 sodas, and an AUX cable. Still had 63 cents left. For the first time, things felt real. They'd play local open mics, community fairs, even a church youth event once. Chris's idea, holy clout, he called it. Everywhere they went, someone knew a lyric or had seen the TikTok. And every time Jay heard his voice echo back from a stranger's mouth, it hit him deeper. The music wasn't just his anymore. Late one night, he and Chris sat in the car outside a gas station, the radio off, a new beat humming low through the speakers. Chris leaned back. "We should drop an EP, man, for real, not just single something that says something." Jay nodded slowly, tapping the steering wheel. "Yeah, something that sounds like where we're from." Chris grinned. "Exactly. Suburb soul." Jay chuckled. "Too corny." "Fine," Chris said, pretending to pout. "You name it." Jay looked out the window, empty streets, neon flicker, the low hum of the highway. "Something honest," he said. "Something like nowhere to hide." Chris snapped his fingers. "That's it." The beat looped again. A confident bounce, 808s kissing melodic horns, the energy of small winds stacking, ready to turn into something bigger. Jay closed his eyes, felt the rhythm in his chest, and whispered, "Let's make it happen." And Beat, tight 808s, bright horns, a gospel choir buried low in the mix, the sound of momentum finally catching up to the dream. Chapter 11. Ghost in the Booth. The glow from the come-up started to fade. Not crash, not collapse, just fade. Like someone dimmed the brightness on his world. Jay sat in front of the mic, hoodie up, headphones crooked. The booth was warm, heavy with the smell of energy drinks and anxiety. Chris was on the other side of the glass, tapping the keyboard, looping a beat that should have hit, but it didn't. "You good, bro?" Chris asked. Jay nodded, not meaning it. "Yeah, just let me run it again." He took a breath and tried to fall into the pocket. The beat had bounce. 808s thudding slow, bass hugging the low end. But his words felt hollow. He'd written all night. 3 verses, rewrote them twice. None of it hit the way it used to. It wasn't writer's block this time. It was worse. He felt like a ghost in his own sound. Ever since the little buzz, everything changed around him. Old friends started acting different. People from school who never said 2 words to him before suddenly hit him with, "Yo, bro, we should collab sometime." Then came the other side, the ones who whispered, "J-Loft think he famous now? He went Hollywood after $50 in streams." He'd see the subtweets, the half-jokes in the group chat, and feel that pit in his stomach again. He tried to laugh it off, but every fake dap and side-eye started to echo louder than applause. His mom, proud but tired, still asked the same question over breakfast. "So this music thing, it's going somewhere, right?" He'd nod, smile, sip orange juice. "Yeah, ma, it's going." Aye. But inside, he wasn't sure. The streams plateaued, the followers came slower, the comments turned mixed. Some love, some mid, some he fell off already. He wanted to prove them wrong. But every time he hit record, the doubt sat beside him, whispering louder than the beat. One night, Chris tried to lift the mood. "Hugh, let's run that one joint again, the one from last week. Window pane." That one was heat. Jay just stared at the screen. "It don't sound like me anymore." "Oh, what you mean? You are you." Jay shook his head. "Nah, it sounds like I'm trying too hard to sound like me." Chris frowned. "Bro, that's in your head." "Exactly," Jay said softly. "That's the problem." The next few sessions felt haunted. He'd show up, sit in front of the mic, and watch himself from somewhere far away. Every verse felt rehearsed, every punchline predictable. He scrolled through his DMs, hundreds of unread messages, half opportunity, half noise. People offering beats, fake managers, random girls asking to be in the next video. Somewhere in the chaos, the pure thing, the thing that made him start, got buried. One night, the beat playing in the studio was eerie. Reversed piano notes, heavy reverb, something that sounded like a sample gasping for air. Chris leaned over the keyboard. "You want to hop on this one?" Jay didn't answer. He just closed his eyes, listening to the ghostly melody stretch and twist. Then, quietly, almost to himself, he mumbled, "Maybe I already did." Chris looked at him, puzzled. Jay opened his notebook, flipped past pages of crossed-out bars, and found one line that still felt true. He whispered it, barely audible under the beat. "I've been chasing my echo, calling it progress." He stared at it, then underlined it once, twice. Maybe the ghost wasn't haunting the booth. Maybe he was the ghost, lingering between who he was and who he thought he had to become. Beat, minor key piano, reversed vocal samples like sighs in the dark, 808s heavy but distant. Each snare hit feels like a heartbeat losing rhythm, the sound of self-doubt turned into music. Chapter 12. Burnout. The cursor blinked like a pulse on life support. In one flashing beat, then another. Jay stared at the empty screen on his laptop, headphones crooked around his neck, the hum of his fan blending with the faint hiss of an unfinished mix. It was 3:42 a.m., and the glow from the monitor painted his face in ghostlight. He'd been sitting there for hours. No, days if you counted the restless nights that bled into each other. His hands hovered above the keys, but his head was empty. No verses, no hooks, just static. The old hunger had turned sour, like milk left too long on the counter. Chris's texts came in around midnight. Chris, you still up? Chris, got a new sample pack. Gospel flips. Crazy. Chris, let's cook tomorrow. Jay didn't answer. He typed a few words. Bet, sounds good, then erased them. It wasn't that he didn't care, he just didn't have it in him tonight. He clicked play on a random beat. The bass line crawled through his headphones, low and soft, but his chest didn't move with it. No rhythm, no reaction. He used to feel every drum like a heartbeat. Now everything sounded like static. At school, things were different too. Teachers who once overlooked him now said things like, "Hey, I saw your name on Spotify, that's incredible." But he couldn't tell if they meant it or if it was just something adults said when they didn't understand what you did. His friends still joked around, but they started noticing his silence more. Trey asked him one day in the hallway, "You good, Loft?" Jay gave a small shrug. "Yeah, just tired." Trey laughed. "You always tired, bro. You need a nap and a hit single." Jay tried to laugh with him, but the words landed heavy. He was tired of pretending, of explaining, of trying to outdo himself every time he opened his mouth. The EP they planned, Nowhere to Hide, was supposed to be done by now. 3 tracks in, everything fell apart. The 4th song, North Side Dreamin', sat unfinished in a folder called /versions. There were 15 files in it. North_side_final.wav, comma, North_side_final_v2.wav, comma, North_side_real_final.wav, North_side_real_final_2.wave. He'd bounce a mix, hate it, tweak it, bounce again, hate that one more. Each final version sounded further from what he wanted. He didn't even know what that was anymore. The burnout wasn't loud at first. It crept in, slow, like smoke leaking under a door. He'd wake up late, scroll through TikTok, watch everyone else's glow-ups. New rappers blowing up from nothing, names he'd never heard before getting playlisted. He'd tell himself good for them, but a sour pit twisted in his gut. He wasn't jealous of the fame. He was jealous of the fire. The way they sounded hungry, how their words felt alive. His lately didn't. At night, he tried to write anyway. He'd sit on his bed, notebook open, pen tapping against the paper, searching for something worth saying. He wrote fragments. Ain't no ladder if the rungs broke, still climbing with one rope. Mama said rest, I said maybe next life. The dream loud, the room quiet. Good lines, maybe, but they didn't mean anything when stitched together. They were just words pretending to be verses. He'd tear the pages out, crumple them, throw them at the wall. The pile in the corner grew like evidence of failure. Chris noticed before Jay said anything. One afternoon, they were in the basement, half working, half avoiding the truth. Chris played a loop, reversed strings, soft drums, a distant choir hum. Jay stared at the floor. "Oh, you don't like it?" Chris asked. "It's fine." "Fine like good or fine like trash?" Jay sighed. "Fine like, I don't know what good sounds like anymore." Chris paused the beat. "You burnt out, bro." Jay frowned. "I'm not." "Yeah, you are. You've been staring at nothing for weeks." The words landed like a punch. Jay wanted to argue but couldn't. He was burnt out. Every part of him knew it. But he didn't want to admit it. Not to Chris, not to himself. Because if he did, then what was left? That night, he walked home alone under the buzzing streetlights. The city felt quieter than usual. Every sound, the cars, the wind, the faint hum of faraway trains, felt distant, like he was hearing it through thick glass. When he got home, his mom was still up, sitting at the kitchen table with a mug of tea. "You been at the studio again?" she asked. He nodded. She gave a small smile. "I worry about you, baby. You don't sleep. You don't eat right." "I'm fine." She tilted her head. "You sure? You look dim. Like the light's on, but nobody's home." Jay stared at his hands. They were trembling slightly. "Just tired," he muttered. "That's all." She reached over, touched his wrist, warm and soft. "You don't gotta prove yourself to the world every night, Jalen. You already make me proud." He nodded, but the words barely stuck. Somewhere deep down, he didn't believe her. Or maybe he didn't believe himself. The next few days blurred together. He'd wake up half-open FL Studio, then shut it again. Scroll through his notifications. Less engagement, fewer comments. The silence after noise was deafening. He started avoiding Chris's calls, avoiding Trey. Even avoided the mirror. And when he finally picked up one night, Chris's voice cracked through the phone. "Yo, where you been, man? We got the gig at the Den next week." Jay hesitated. "I might not make it." "What you mean? You gotta make it." Jay rubbed his face. I don't got it in me right now." Chris exhaled hard. "You think anybody got it easy, bro? You think Kendrick ain't feel this? Cole, Tyler, they all hit walls. You just gotta climb them." "Maybe I'm not built for it." "Don't say that," Chris snapped. "You the most built for it person I know." Jay didn't answer. Just let the silence stretch until Chris finally said, "All right, but promise me one thing. Don't quit before you rest." Then the line went dead. That phrase stayed with him. Don't quit before you rest. But rest didn't come easy. He'd try to sleep, only to wake up at 2 a.m. with his brain racing, every thought colliding into noise. The unfinished songs haunted him. The dreams he hadn't lived yet pressed against his chest like weight. He started pacing his room, muttering lyrics into his phone. Half-finished voice memos filled his notes. Maybe I peaked in my basement. Maybe my best line's behind me. Maybe the dream only real when you sleep. He'd delete each one after replaying it, disgusted at his own voice. Days later, he went to the studio out of guilt, not inspiration. Chris had a beat waiting. Melancholy, minor key piano, reversed samples, heavy reverb. The kind of sound that felt like drowning in your own echoes. Jay plugged in his mic, sighed, and hit record. But when the beat dropped, he just stood there staring at the mic. His reflection in the glass looked unfamiliar. Eyes sunken, lips tight, hoodie clinging to him like armor. He started to rap. Something raw, maybe even brilliant. But halfway through, his throat tightened. Words caught like smoke. He pulled off the headphones. "I can't." Chris's chair creaked. "What you mean?" Jay sat down, elbows on his knees. "It's like, my head's full, but nothing's coming out right." Chris leaned back. "Then stop forcing it. Music ain't meant to come from pressure. You gotta live a little again." Jay gave a hollow laugh. "I don't even know what that means anymore." "It means step outside. Breathe. Touch grass, bro." "I touch bills. That's what I touch." Chris chuckled, but Jay didn't. He was dead serious. Weeks passed. Jay took a break. At least, that's what he told himself. No new songs, no freestyles, no TikToks. Just work, sleep, repeat. But breaks without joy weren't rest. They were just pauses between breakdowns. He'd sit on the bus, watching the city roll by. Billboards flashing smiling faces, rappers who made it. Faces that used to look like his until they didn't. He wondered what it felt like to actually arrive somewhere. Not fame, just peace. One evening, he found himself at the park. It was empty except for a few kids shooting hoops. He sat on a bench, phone in his hand, scrolling through old clips. Oh, his first upload, the shaky camera, his nervous smile. He remembered how alive he felt that night. The rawness, the risk. That boy in the video wasn't chasing metrics. He was chasing meaning. Jay closed his eyes and listened to the city. Cars, distant sirens, wind through trees. It was almost music if you listened right. He took a deep breath. For the first time in weeks, it didn't feel heavy. Maybe Chris was right. Maybe he needed to live again. Later that night, back home, he sat at his desk. The glow from his monitor hummed like an old friend. He opened a new file in FL Studio. Blank, untitled, clean. He didn't force anything, just clicked one key at a time. A slow piano. Then another note. Then a reversed hum. The sound built itself, gentle, imperfect, human. He closed his eyes and whispered into the mic, voice barely above a breath. If I can't find the flame, maybe I'll learn to glow. He didn't know if it was good. Didn't care. For the first time in months, it felt real again. Beat, minor key piano, reversed samples, ghost-like reverb, every note dissolving into the next. The rhythm slow but pulsing, like a heartbeat finding its pace again. The sound of exhaustion turning quietly into rebirth. Chapter 13. The Studio Light. The world was quiet the night everything clicked again. Not triumphant, not loud, just quiet. The kind of silence that means something's about to happen. Saws. It was close to midnight when Jay unlocked the studio door. The hallway was empty, the floor slick with that faint bleach smell. Chris was already inside, sitting cross-legged on the floor, laptop open, cables tangled like vines around him. "About time," Chris said, grinning. "I thought you ghosted again." Jay dropped his backpack, smiled faintly. "I almost did." Chris raised an eyebrow. "Almost don't count." They laughed, soft and tired, but real. It felt good to hear it. The studio wasn't much, just their shared space in the back of a friend's dad's print shop. Faded foam panels clung to the walls. A flickering lamp leaned sideways on the desk. The mic stand was held together with duct tape and stubbornness. But to Jay, it felt like home again. He set his notebook down, took a long breath, and scanned the room. Empty pizza boxes, a calendar with half the months crossed out, a stack of scratched-up CDRs. Evidence of a journey that hadn't killed them yet. New beat? Jay asked. Chris smirked. You know it? He hit play. A low hum filled the room. Soft synth pads, minimal drums, faint city sirens under the mix. It sounded like a skyline breathing. Like something waking up slowly after a long winter. Jay closed his eyes. The sound wasn't hype. It wasn't sad. It was steady. Calm in a way he hadn't felt in months. That's it, Jay whispered. Don't touch it. Chris nodded. You already know. Jay flipped open his notebook. The pages weren't messy this time, just scattered thoughts, a few half-finished bars, some doodles. At the top of the page, one line stood alone. Still running, but the dream ain't running away no more. He read it, smiled faintly. That was the feeling he wanted to capture. Not victory, momentum. Not fame, forward motion. Chris looped the intro. Jay stepped up to the mic. He adjusted the pop filter, exhaled, pressed his palms together like a prayer, and nodded once. "Rolling?" Chris said. Jay's voice slipped into the air, soft at first. Long nights, short breath, one shot, no rest. Mama's hands cracked, but her hope never left. I've been chasing something that don't fit in my chest. Now I'm learning peace sound better than success. The beat pulsed low beneath him. 808S warm and quiet. Synth pads like wind moving through open blinds. Each word hit smoother than the last. No strain, no overthinking, just truth. He paused, rewound, took another pass. This time he didn't even look at the lyrics, just felt them. Basement dreams still flood my nights. Mics smell like sweat, the neon lights. We ain't rich, but I swear we close. 'Cause my voice still mine, and that's all I chose. Chris was silent behind the glass, eyes wide, head nodding in slow approval. Yummed. When the verse ended, he let the beat run a few extra bars, fading naturally. The room sat in silence afterward, heavy but golden. "Who? Bro," Chris said finally. "That might be the one." Jay smiled without looking up. "Nah, that's just me again." They took a break, sat cross-legged on the floor with the last slices of cold pizza between them. The glow from the monitors cast lazy light across the room. "Remember when we thought 50 plays was crazy?" Chris said, half laughing. Jay chuckled. "That was crazy. Now we got 50K on one track. Still crazy." "Yeah," Chris said, smiling. "But now it feel earned." Jay leaned back against the wall. "You ever think about what happens if this don't go all the way?" Chris shrugged. "Then it don't, but it already went somewhere." He took a sip of water, looked over. "You showed people who you are. I got better at what I do. That's not failure, that's foundation." Jay nodded slowly. He hadn't realized it until now, but Chris was right. They'd already done something most people never even tried. Yeah, they'd built a sound out of nothing. The laptop pinged. A new notification. Jay leaned forward, squinting. It was from Instagram. Some rapper he followed, verified badge glowing blue. At Real Miko. "Yo bro, this joint crazy. You trying to collab? DM me." Jay blinked, reread it, then looked at Chris. Chris laughed. "Miko? As in Miko Miko?" "Yeah," Jay said, voice cracking slightly. "What the hell?" The phone buzzed again. Another DM. Another artist. Then another. And then a producer he used to look up to in high school. The screen lit up like a Christmas tree. For the first time, Jay didn't feel pressure. Didn't feel fear. He just grinned. Chris raised his hands like a referee. "Bro, you up." Jay laughed, shaking his head. "Nah, I'm just seen now." He stood, stretched, and looked through the glass at the mic. The cord hung loose, coiled like a snake ready to strike. He walked back into the booth. The air inside was warm, dense with the smell of sweat and static. He lifted the headphones, slid them on, and said, "Run it again." Chris hit the space bar. Yeah. The beat rolled in. Slow, glowing city lights outside sinking to every kick. Jay started freestyling, off the dome this time. Not perfect, not polished, just raw, just him. Still broke, but the sound rich. Still hope when the doubt hits. Still mom on the phone saying, "Baby, eat." Still me with a verse and some half-dreamed beats. He stopped. Closed his eyes. Smiled. That was enough. When they wrapped, it was nearly 3 a.m. They turned off the monitors, shut down the lights one by one until only the lamp in the corner glowed. Jay gathered his stuff, sliding his notebook into his bag. Chris unplugged the gear, humming something under his breath. One of Jay's hooks, soft and off-key. Jay looked around the room, one last time. It wasn't glamorous. It wasn't clean. But it was where he found himself again. Outside, the night air hit cold and clean. The streets were half empty, just the hum of tires and the occasional siren somewhere far off. Jay zipped his hoodie up and pulled his phone from his pocket. More notifications. More DMs. More possibilities. He scrolled past them and stopped on an old message from his mom, sent months ago, the night after the viral clip blew up. "Mom, I don't get all this music stuff, but I love hearing you happy." He smiled, heart tapped, phone back in pocket. He walked toward the bus stop, the streetlights stretching long behind him. The city wasn't asleep, just dreaming. And for the first time, he felt like maybe, just maybe, he was wide awake inside it. Later that week, the Den reached out again. They wanted him and Chris to headline their next show. Jay said yes this time. The night of, the crowd was twice as big. Local blogs showed up. There were cameras, people holding phones, faces he didn't know mouthing along to his verses. Chris dropped the opening beat, same one from that final session. Minimal drums, warm synths, faint sirens in the back. The sound of hope looping. Jay stepped up to the mic. The crowd quieted. He didn't plan a speech, didn't rehearse. He just looked at them, all those strangers who somehow felt like family, and said softly, "Thank you for listening." Then the verse came out like breathing. "Every nah I got turned to rhythm. Every dark night turned to wisdom. Every dream feel far till you chase it. Now the dream slowed down, let me face it." The crowd clapped in rhythm. Somewhere near the front, Trey shouted, "Talk that talk, Loft." Jay smiled, didn't break flow. By the last chorus, he wasn't performing. He was testifying. Not about fame or pain, but presence. About staying long enough to find himself inside the noise. When the lights came up, Chris handed him a bottle of water and said, "You did that." Jay wiped sweat off his brow, still smiling. "We did." Chris nodded. "Yeah, we did." They walked outside together. The night air was soft, heavy with summer, buzzing faintly with street energy. Down the block, a car rolled by, blasting one of Jay's songs, fuzzy through bad speakers but real enough to make them both stop. Chris turned, grinning. "Yo, you hear that?" Jay laughed, wide-eyed. "Man, that's crazy." They stood there a moment, just listening. Back home, he couldn't sleep. He sat on his bed, cracked the window, let the city breeze drift in. The phone buzzed again. DMs from rappers, producers, local journalists. He read a few, smiled, then set it face down. He wasn't chasing it tonight. Not anymore. He opened his notebook, flipped to the last page, and wrote, "He didn't make it yet, but the dream's not running away anymore. It's waiting for him to catch up." He underlined it once. Closed the book. Turned off the light. And somewhere down the block, a car drove by with his beat still playing through the night, faint, imperfect, but alive. The sound of tomorrow already beginning. Beat, minimal drums, warm synth pads, faint city sirens, 78 BPM, the rhythm steady and open like sunrise finding its way through blinds, hope looping quietly until the fade. Thank you for joining us on this journey. Until next time, stay safe.